Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 157th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will discuss what appears to be a growing anti-Christian bias in the United States and the rest of the world. We will tackle the questions, does it exist, where does it exist, and why does it exist? Our panel today, beginning on my left, is Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services. On his left is Patty Haskins, member of the Wadsworth City Council. And on her left is Tom Finley, retired vice president of Rubbermaid Incorporated. Bryan, religious bias in one form or another has been with us as long as there have been religions, but it appears that something has changed in recent years. Our country and most of Europe were founded on Judeo-Christian principles and values. While it appears that the values and principles remain largely intact, the religious institutions themselves seem under attack. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the issues that has come up, and I think where we've drifted, is that certain elements in our society have felt the need to, I guess, put religion in a box, and you can practice your religion in that box.
Excuse me, this is civil discussion. You can mention what those elements are.
Okay. Well, I think it starts with the LGBTQ movement, sort of the militant strain of these folks. We've seen, over the last several years, businesses being sued. There's an open warfare against Chick-fil-A because of their biblical, the owners of the company have a biblical perspective. They're not open on Sunday. They have protest people out there because they feel that Chick-fil-A is discriminating against people. Chick-fil-A is very quick to point out that they do not discriminate in hiring. They hire all sorts of people. They comply with the law, but because the owner's belief doesn't square with these particular groups, Chick-fil-A is considered a hate group. They do chicken sandwiches. We're all familiar with the Masterpiece Cake case, where the individual, the baker, there were certain things that he would not decorate a cake for. It wasn't just same-sex marriages. It was, hate speech he wouldn't do. It was white nationalist stuff. I mean, he had more of a religious tone towards his business. And I believe that case was settled, correctly, but he's still being sued. And the state of Colorado is not happy with how those things turned out. And they continually to go after him. I think it's bordering on harassment. Just recently, one of the presidential candidates, one of the Democratic presidential candidates, Beto O'Rourke, said that any church that's against gay marriage should lose tax benefits. And this flies in the face of everything that this country stands for. It's wrong. You can have a belief and hold to your belief, but the notion that you'll practice what you believe seems to rub people the wrong way. I went to the good old website. There was a bill that passed the House of Representatives. It's H.R. 5, and this is called the Equality Act. The problem with the Equality Act is that it exempts itself from the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993, which is known as RFRA. And this was a law that was introduced by Chuck Schumer. It had bipartisan support. It passed both House and Senate almost unanimously, and it restored religious institutions' ability to practice their beliefs in the public square. And how does this affect people? You might not realize this, but there are religious colleges out there. The Equality Act would say that if you don't comply with our view and our definition of marriage and gender and sexuality, then we'll pull your funding. we will not allow, we won't have federal funding for your students. There won't be any federal aid. There won't be any federal grants.
This is a bill that just passed?
This passed the Congress. It's in the Senate right now. Okay, and I don't think it's going to get through the Senate the way it reads right now. Because of that, it exempts itself from RFRA. And RFRA was, I guess, the stake in the ground that our legislators put, that individuals can practice their religion, can have free association, and not be subject to the government coming in and telling them how they're going to, who they're going to hire, how they're going to practice their beliefs.
Let me get this right. Congress passed a bill that exempts themselves from a bill that they previously passed?
The bill, H.R. 5, exempts itself from RFRA.
Which is the bill they passed?
Which is the bill that was passed in 1993 that basically restored, that's why it's called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, because there was an act previous to that that took away a lot of religious freedoms. It restored it. This was under the Clinton administration, and you can go and you can look this up. And basically, the bill is sort of a blueprint to, I feel, this is my opinion, it's a blueprint to gut religious freedoms. You can practice whatever you want, just don't do it in the public square, and you have to comply. Basically, government's coming in and saying what you can and can't believe in. The Catholic Church, as well as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the church that I belong to, have worked hand in hand over the years. Another thing that's hurt faith-based organizations is the discrimination that they're subject to when it comes to adoption. The Catholic services and our church services for adoption did a wonderful work for people that could not afford. It's very expensive to adopt in this country. And they provided a very valuable service. They've pretty much stopped. I know our church is no longer providing adoption services. The Catholic Church is no longer providing. There might be pockets that they are, but there is a legislation, the Child Welfare Provider Inclusion Act of 2017, that they're trying to work out so that it would restore funding to organizations, faith-based organizations that provide services like this. And so we see this erosion of religious freedom that we haven't seen before in the past, where you're free to believe what you want to believe, but you can't practice it, and you can't sponsor organizations in the public square that don't fit in the government's view as far as equality, as far as discrimination, and right on down the line. So yeah, I do believe that Christians and other religious organizations are under attack currently, and it's something that people, when you talk about H.R. 5, people just look at you like, what? They're not aware of that.
So this is something more than media bias. It's
believe
government action.
I believe. The thing is, I think the media has done a good job of not bringing it up, because I think there would be a hue and a cry in the land if people knew what was going on, and the effort to almost codify what you can and can't believe in when it comes to practicing your beliefs.
Patty, what do you think?
Just in regard to a couple of things, I believe the case on the Equality Act is going to the Supreme Court, is it not?
It hasn't even been put into law yet.
Right, so it has...
It hasn't passed the Senate.
No, but there is a case going to the Supreme Court, I believe, that's going to discuss this, and the basic idea behind it is that LGBTQ, and I always mess up the letters, people should be given the same protections under the Civil Rights Act as whether it be gender or whether it be religion, whether it be whatever. So there are some things that are going to affect that. When you talk about bias, bias when we say bias, it tends to have a negative connotation. Although technically bias is just simply feeling a particular way on an issue. So we all have bias, and it's not necessarily something that is negative. As far as religious persecution, obviously it has gone on for years. Now, what I consider persecution is Christians that are killed simply because of their faith within the Middle East constraint. The Holocaust is obviously religious persecution. All of those, dating back to biblical times, that were killed or martyred simply because of their faith. This is still going on, and still going on in many countries. It is not as much, although there are people within this country that are still killed because of their faith, whether it be at the Jewish synagogue where it was attacked and people that were there were killed because of the Jews were targeted in that particular case. I personally think that the claim that religion is being attacked has gone a little bit overboard. I think there is a little bit of hype to it. One of the things that I see is that religions have come out of the, it used to be you went to church on Sunday and the priest preached, or the minister gave his sermon, and you listened to that, and you went home and you practiced your religion and you lived your life by that faith. Religions have now taken on a political sense, and we are seeing more and more religious figures from Christian faiths that are taking political stances, and that has brought it out in the open. And it is basically a tie between the state and religion, saying religions are pushing to have effect on what the state does. And that idea of separation of church and state is being really strained because of that problem. I think the media has pushed that, as well as certain religious figures. I mean, we've heard for, 5-6 years about the war on Christmas. I don't see any war on Christmas, and yet this is a giant thing that we have people that are pledging in their political campaigns that they're going to end the war on Christmas. I don't know how you end something that hasn't begun. Yes. In reference to what Bryan has said, and I understand all of those cases, but we're talking about religion being used in a public domain to actually influence policy. When it's not the church is saying that you can't come in here or whatever. The church has a business that it operates, whether it be a college, whatever. And they're saying, okay, I'm going to a religious school, and you are going to abide by my religious teachings, but I also want the federal government to fund me. And the federal government has come in and said, fine, you can run the religious school, but if you do not comply with all federal non-religious laws, then we just simply won't give you federal funding. And very frankly, I don't particularly have a problem with that.
I'd say I think this is where, Patty, with all due respect, you have it backwards when it comes to religion and the state. The Constitution ensures that government does not support, the government does not come in and say we have a state-run religion. It doesn't say, the Constitution doesn't say that you can't practice your religion in the public square, period.
But it doesn't say that you have to support.
No, the government doesn't have to support it, but there are plenty of religious people that have opinions. They're not locked into just keeping their opinions to themselves. They can take it to the public square and say, because of my beliefs, this is how I believe, and how things should go. So you don't put your religion aside when you run for a particular office. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put a wedge, and they're trying to say, in reverse, because you're a religious person, you have to leave your religion and your beliefs behind, and sort of, I would say, accept the secular notion that somehow you need to be non-religious, non-believing, so that you can actually be a fair judge in the public square or work for the government. I think some people have it reversed.
I don't think that that's what they're saying. They're just simply saying if you want federal help and monies, that you have to abide by federal laws. Definitely, we have no problem with anyone expressing their religion. One of the problems too is that religion is not popular in this country. The popular, being part of a religion, whether it be Christianity or anything else, has gone down. And as that has gone down, the number of people that have claimed that they are Christians who actually attend services every Sunday has gone down. So there's this lack of that. As well, and going along with that, we have scandals within religions.
Yeah.
Whether it be the Catholic Church scandal, whether it be evangelists that have been caught doing various or committing various crimes has really hurt.
Tom, where do you weigh in on all this?
I think there is, I'm going to go back to you, Brian, an erosion against religious freedom. When you look at the big picture, religious freedom and the attack on Christianity, and I wanted to bring this up with a new book that's out called Dark Agenda. A leading Jewish America is speaking out. He sees a war against Christians in court and the media. Their goal, to destroy Christianity in America. Not the religions per se, but Christianity in all their forms in America. He's saying the left's calculated efforts to create a godless, heathen American society, and his book is about that. I haven't read the book yet. I just picked up this.
This is David Horowitz?
David Horowitz, The Dark Agenda, The War to Destroy Christian America. And I'm reading the excerpts from it, but clearly he's pointing out the dangers to this erosion of our basic. But I'm also thinking, it reminded me in my teaching career of this business of separation of church and state and finding its way into the intricacies of, and the dispute we had about the Catholic Church not paying for the buses that we used to run. You remember that?
Yeah.
Silly arguments about, right down to that business of, and it couldn't get satisfied in such ways, and so we fudged the books.
The public school buses were picking up Catholic kids, taking them to the Catholic school.
Yes.
Yes.
But the Catholic Church wasn't supporting financially the buses.
Well, that was the argument, but of course they paid taxes.
Sure.
Of course they paid.
Those parents paid taxes.
But it
The
was
parents did.
Well, the parents did, yes. And so it was
Gotcha.
convoluted
Okay,
argument,
right,
and it got so confusing. And I remember the superintendent at that time, I said, "How are you handling this, Sam?" And he says, "I just don't report it." I just don't report it. Where they're going to, they're just this many kids we transport, and I don't tell them where.
That was Clarence. Somebody.
Way back then. So this is not new, but it's taken on a new danger as far as I'm concerned. And I'm looking at the action of Congress to, in the visitor center, take all references of any kind of religion from it, and the move to take to affect the currency, "In God We Trust," removing that from. These are the subtleties that begin to creep in and say, "Hey, what is going on here?" So
I would add too, if it's no big deal, if our friends on the left are just, it's no big deal, why do they then support groups that want to take a cross out of a city or state emblem that's been there for 150 years?
Yeah.
Stowe, Ohio, right?
Yeah.
It was in their logo on the.
Yeah, their thing. Certain things to me I don't look at that and say that says that's a particular religion. That is a manifestation of what those people, when they put that, what do you want to call it? Their
Logo.
Their logo, their crest out there. That was part of their beliefs. It's kind of like the Pilgrims. You can't take religion out of the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims didn't just come here because they were looking for a place to live. They came here to escape religious persecution in the countries that they lived in. That's period. You can't.
But that's when you, and I'm not sure if I'm in favor of that or not, but
taking the
but
cross out.
When you put that, when you put that cross up there, you're indicating that is signifying a particular religion for that area, and that I think really strikes at the heart of establishment of religion. And that religion should not be determined, and symbols should not be determined by the majority of the people in that area. And I think that's one of the problems. Yeah. And just because it's been there for 150 years doesn't make it right.
Yeah, but you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to scrub
No, you're
religion and people's beliefs out of everything.
not. No, but you know,
that we
some
do.
things have gotten a lot better though too. I mean, I still remember the first teaching job I applied for. The gentleman that interviewed me was the superintendent and said to me, "Are you a Christian?" Now, he was not allowed to ask that, but I wanted the job and I was going to answer it. And I said, "Yes, I'm Catholic." And he said, "Well, at least you believe in Christ." And I thought, you know, this is the type of thing.
Yeah.
This is the type of thing that was going on.
Well, Patty, I agree with you. I mean, we can sit here and share stories about religious bigotry, given my beliefs and your beliefs. And,
Yes,
and,
yes.
And we, you know, I'm sure we've got a lot of similar stories. But what the point I'm trying to make is that it hasn't been on such a level that it's now the government is actually introducing laws that exempt themselves from a signature piece that everybody agreed upon.
Yeah, and I
back in
didn't understand that.
1993.
What are they exempting themselves
They're
from
exempting
doing?
themselves from.
The government doesn't have to do what?
They don't have to comply with RFRA
In what way, though?
in everything that RFRA said that it reestablished that religions can practice and believe and hire and sponsor colleges. That they're not in jeopardy of losing any of their federal funding, you know, right on down the line to being able to, you know, believe and exercise their conscience. And this Equality Act basically says, no, you can't do that. You have to, if you don't do it this way, then, you know, we can come at you with discrimination, we can come at you with federal, you know, pulling your federal funding, you know, right on down the line. So why is that? Why isn't this particular legislation, why is it exempt from RFRA? You see what I'm saying? I mean, why is that?
I think we have, we get off target very quickly here. It's greater than religion, if you will, or the religions, the attack on that. This is the belief in God, the supreme being, that's at stake here. It goes way beyond that.
Well, I would agree with that,
And
yes.
that's the danger. When you remove the values and their emphasis from a society, we know the results of that. It fails.
And our
it's
values
there.
definitely become from our religious views.
It does. And
Yes.
so that's where we are. Remember all the harassment around the Sunday blue laws?
Oh, yes.
Remember
yes,
all
yes.
of that?
Sure.
We went through that.
Younger people don't even know what blue laws
Yeah,
are,
I
but
do.
yes.
Well, that was of the same kind, but it's not nearly so serious as it is now, where it would appear, and here's a man speaking out. I don't know, I haven't read the book, so I can't quote anything on it. But his concern ultimately is no God, no religions in our laws or the way the country is governed. So you know, and I know, history would tell us
Yeah, doesn't end
that's
well.
the disintegration of a society.
You know what occurs to me, and it seems that most of the arguments that I see emerging in the public square have to do with fundamentalist Christians, and that the arguments don't have anything to do with belief in Christ as our Savior or any of that. It's that fundamentalists don't believe, or they're against abortion, they're against homosexuality, they're against gun control. Those are three big left-wing issues. And that I think, to me, that's the backbone of the opposition to Christianity. It's actually the opposition to fundamentalist Christianity and their political beliefs.
And John, I would agree with you, and I would furthermore say, of those three things you've said, they are the most ill-defined, least understood basis of anything. We get, well, what do you mean no gun laws? And now you just get so many variations when you talk to people what that means. It's not defined, but it's a rallying cry. So
Yeah, but I think it's clearly defined when it comes to homosexuality, because we're talking about same-sex marriage, mainly,
Yes.
I think. And
And the question is whether those that are of same sex have the same rights as those that are of opposite sex.
I
Well,
got to disagree with that, because that was clearly upset by transgender.
there is a compromise
the
here,
things that's really-
and certain states have adopted. Utah has. It's called fairness for all, and they're working out compromises and saying, okay, what are the most important issues for you? What are the most important issues for you? What are the things that you will not compromise on? And they've been able to work together. It's the militant side, maybe, of each equation that's saying, no, 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 it's got to be our way or the highway. So there are protections that can be put in place for those that, have have homosexuality, same-sex marriage. But I don't believe the government can dictate to a church to say, you will marry, you will marry same-sex couples.
No,
I mean,
no.
that you just can't have that, and that's sort of the chipping away at religious freedom that some of these,
But the Equality Act doesn't say that, though.
Well, the Equality Act.
It doesn't say a Catholic church has to marry a
Here's
same-sex
what
couple.
I want to say that keeps coming out and frightening me. The majority of Americans, if you will, think intelligently about this or not. Our danger is allowing extremists, left or right,
Agreed.
run the show. That's our danger.
Agreed.
I think the danger is fundamentalism of any sort, whether it's fundamentalist Muslims or Christians or anything.
It's another way of saying extremists.
I got the last word. Thank you very much.